Welcome to this edition of the Men's Room. Today we're joined by Jerry Mitchell, former professional athlete, national champion, and a man whose life story is defined by resilience and redemption. Jerry is a member of the Tacoma Titans basketball team and previously played professionally in Italy, as well as for the Orlando Magic Wheels from 2007 to 2011, where he won a Divisional I national championship. Born with arthrogryposis and adopted at the age of 4, Jerry learned early what it meant to overcome adversity. In his mid-20s, life took a difficult turn. He became addicted to meth and heroin, later experiencing homelessness. By the age of 32, Jerry chose a different path, one that has been clean, and he's been sober ever since. Beyond athletics, Jerry has worked in security for major venues and organizations, including the Seattle Mariners, Climate Pledge Arena, Live Nation, Lake Washington School District, and the Washington State House of Representatives. Jerry's story is not about survival, it's about discipline, accountability, and what it means to reclaim your life. We're honored to have him here today. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Linda, for having me.
Well, what we want to talk about today, I thought that it would be a great opportunity for you to answer the question, what was that moment where you couldn't ignore anymore? Not the worst day, but the day you realized that this can't continue.
I think that it's such a open, it's a hard question to answer, honestly. I think there's multiple times that happened because with relapsing, you might go back and, go through the struggle of addiction again. I think for me, it was there was two moments. What I was putting my family through back in, gosh, when did I first check in? I want to say I went to rehab in 20, might have started. I'll have timeline issues here, and I'm sorry about that. Probably 2015, I want to say, is when I checked in for the first time to detox. I knew so I it's going to be kind of a longer answer to this just because there's events that occurred. Where I was homeless was not far from the house. I was in the Federal Way area, so my family actually saw me on the streets, and putting my family through that was really hard. More on them, obviously, but as you feel for them, even if you're loaded or out using dope. So I don't know. I would say the last time I guess I'll fast forward to the last time that I actually checked in, which was 2017 Union Gospel Mission. I went a whole about 8 months or so through the program, took off from the program as a fool, actually. Went through a whole month of relapsing drug use. I was in a relationship, and I think it was that actual time right there, the last time I ever did the whole relapse mark of my sobriety. It was at that point when I was more responsible for other people in my life, and I think that's what triggered me to actually go through with sobriety. When you have at the time I had a girlfriend with two kids, not mine or anything like that, but as a 30-year-old, you feel responsible for the people that you're around at that point. You have to get things going, or you're all going to fall flat. And I think that's something that I don't know why it was that situation right there that sparked more of a steady on, and as they say, it's kind of cliche, but it's not, one day at a time, and trying to actually really really get down to business on this. I think would have been 2018. It would have been July of 2018, probably actually June we started working on it, getting me sober, but July was when I actually got sober. So, and sorry for the rambling on that. It's just, that's a hard, in addiction, that's actually a harder question to answer because there's not one time that sets you on that path. There could be multiple things and multiple dates, and it might not even be that. You might accidentally fall into it. I kind of did, you know. Yeah, so
I'm
it would have
actually
been back in 2018. What's that?
I'm actually not surprised by that answer that it wasn't just one time.
Yeah,
And then that's the reason why I asked that question, to be honest, is that it isn't just one time. You may think
no,
about it several times. And the fact that you shared something here that I don't know if you realize, but I want our listeners to realize is that you said it was people I was responsible for. So it was time
yeah,
to step up and be responsible. Because sometimes people think that, oh, I'm tired of this. I don't want to be here. No, you actually shifted to a perspective. People are counting on me, and if
yeah.
people are counting on me, I got to get it together. That's what it took.
I will say this though, there is a massive caveat to that. There is a huge problem with people that think that that is a comparable thing to the disease of addiction. You will never win that one. Okay. It wasn't just that. I got in a prescription, I what they call a medication assisted treatment program, that literally saved my life. I was introduced to buprenorphine naloxone. It's also called Suboxone. Back in late 2016. I went to Fairfax psychiatric mental health, whatever you want to call it. It's a detox facility up in Kirkland, and I was asked there, and it was the second time I was asked about Suboxone. The first time I'd refused. The second time I'm like, I was going through one of the worst withdrawals, I'd ever gone through. And they always say it gets worse every time you relapse. And it's no joke, it does. Um, and it actually was eye-opening to me on how well it worked for somebody, for me, you know. And I know that when fast forward to June of 2018, I had overdosed I think at least 5 times that month. And Tacoma General Hospital ER, St. Francis, Auburn, wherever. I'm in the Federal Way area, so I mean, we were all southbound. My doctor's office is in the Belltown area. It's University of Washington. They basically brought me in. My girlfriend and mother were asked to step out of the office, and my doctor asked me how long I'd been using, how long I'd been in a relapse. And I said, it's been since I left Union Gospel Mission and treatment. And, she's like, I can get you clean right now. We have the tools to do that if you want. We have Suboxone. And I'm not saying that's a cure all. I know that I get that there is a massive, in the clean and sober community, at least back in the day, it used to be knocked on trading one drug for another or using a medication, to get sober. I understand that, but for me, it's worked marvelously. It's been absolutely. I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't. There's no way I'd be here right now if it wasn't for that medication. And I wanted to put that out there. I know that we had talked about at first, you'd asked me about the responsibility and having people in your care and stuff like that. That as an emotional decision, yes, but you have to be able to also you've put it aside for so long, you know what I mean? When you're on this, whether you're on the streets or you're a functional addict, you've put that stuff on hold for so long. When you get clean, you got to focus on you. It don't matter how many kids, wife, job, whatever it is, you have to put you first. And if that takes 10 years, that takes a decade. If it takes 5, it takes 5. I can't I see this all the time, Linda, where I will watch somebody get clean and they jump right into back, being a father, a mother, I got to get the house, the car, the this, the that. Stay clean. Figure that out first. Stop rushing everything. Stay clean. Why are you rushing back into all this? Get yourself some clean time. Get steady, stable, build your own foundation of who you want to be first. I mean, and that's how you see me doing right now. And I've fallen down, not with addiction, but relationships in the past 7 years. So, but you learn from it. And that's what you got to do about this whole chance that you get.
I'm really appreciative of the pure honesty that we're having in this conversation here, because it's one thing to talk about surface level, the things that happen in addiction, but you're talking about the deeper
You
stuff
got
that
it.
of you got to do it for yourself, and you talk about jumping back in, thinking that you can go hold the world together before you're ready to do it. And so you're
Before you hold
saying take
yourself
the time for
together.
you to get it together before you go taking on the things that you left maybe on pause, or the
Yep.
relationships that you're in. Um, and I
You
think,
know, Sorry, go ahead.
oh, and
I'm
I, and
sorry. I just want your. I wanted to jump in after you're done with that thought right there and
All
tell you
right.
something.
I
Go
promise
ahead.
you'll be able to jump right back in. So
Yes,
after,
ma'am.
so I just wanted people to our audience to know that that's usually what it's going to take. That's that focus on self-care. Number
Yes.
one, there is no way to short the time, and it may take you a long time, but if you can't do that, you're not going to be good at any of those other things. And the fact that you also said that you might relapse several times, and there's probably you're probably going to speak to this, but there's going to be a time where maybe you just said, I don't, this isn't for me. I can't do this. I'm done trying. I mean, did you ever have an experience like that? 'Cause I know the
Oh,
can do,
yeah.
Jerry.
Um. Yeah. You mean like I can't do like I can't? Are you
Can't
like
get sober. I can't get
think
clean. It's
anymore? You
beyond
know,
me.
you want to know the truth about that, which is hilarious. Not funny, but the absolute truth. As I look at the weather outside right now, winter was one of the times that you'd see a lot of people checking into detox or rehab or whatever, because you don't want to try to survive out there with this stuff. Okay. And that's just a small little, thing to addiction. But I'll tell you right now, 100%, it wasn't about the fact if I didn't have family, I honestly, and I know this sounds crazy, I did not mind being homeless on drugs. Crazy, I know. But when you're out there, it's a whole nother life, it's a whole nother world. I adapted to it, you know. I didn't mind it. If I wasn't, the only reason I got sober, was because I felt I was hurting my family, not even my ex at the time. I'm talking about before then. I'm talking about my mom, my sister, my family, um I didn't, the summers in the beginning. So this is the other thing. When you're out there, so as you put down there, I don't know if people know this because of the disability that we, talked about, that you mentioned before. I'm wheelchair bound. I'm in a wheelchair. Okay. Um, I had to figure out how to be 100% independent on the streets, in the woods, because you don't sleep. Back then when I was out there, you weren't sleeping in front of, on the sidewalk or the business like they do now, like they're allowed to. You weren't put the tent, in Tent City. You were hiding in the woods away from society, because it was a shame to be addicted. It was a shame. It was not something that was allowed like it is now. It wasn't enabled, it was not supported, it was not, it was a guilt shame thing. I mean, the program will even talk about that. And I mean AA and NA. I I think the biggest thing for me was when I started out there, the money that we were making on the corner, especially when I left Tacoma. I started in Tacoma because I didn't know there was a homeless population, and I didn't know I could find heroin out here. Heroin's the more dependable, codependent drug that you have to have. Meth, yes, but opiate withdrawals suck. So a buddy of mine who taught me how to survive the streets, we came up to the 348th area where Costco was, and the world of the homeless population. Costco and that Olive Garden corner out here, it was a honey hole, and I mean big money on that corner for people that were homeless. It paid out for years. And that to us, and the reason I bring that stuff up, I'm not trying to glorify the streets. I want to make sure that that's known. That's 100% not what I'm doing, but I'm saying it was not hard to survive when you have the funds, when you have the dope, and when you don't care anymore, you know. And it's not that you're depressed, it's you're so numb that you stop caring. You're so you're loaded, you're high, you don't care anymore, you've lost everything, so why not just do live like that? That's why you see it nowadays like that, you know. And that's why, you know, whether it's family, whether it's the weather up here, it is a very hard, you know, no matter when it is, the fall, the winter, the rain, the snow, the cold weather, that is, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, that is not easy to survive, you know, no matter who you are. You know, I was never a sheltered kind of person, you know, never checked into a shelter. You know, I didn't want to be watched. You know, I wanted to be able to regulate myself, you know. So I don't know if that I just want, you know, just um just to, and I don't remember what the question was, but I just wanted to make sure you understood that, you know, when you choose or not choose to be out there, there are times that people just, you know, say F it, I'd rather do it, you know, than not. So
That's actually great that you shared that part because I was asking the question under the assumption that you made the choice to get sober, to get off the drugs, and that you might have found yourselves in situations where you would fall backwards and you're like, ah, not again, you know, I'm not cut out
yeah,
for quitting. But you're saying, which is really important for people to hear, is that sometimes with addictions, and a lot of times with addictions, you don't want to change what you have
no, why
because
it's
the
hard.
addiction helps you in other areas of your life, even though it might be at a detriment to you in the long run. There's times where you
Yeah,
don't want to change and you don't want to overcome the addiction because you prefer the lifestyle, or maybe you know the lifestyle and you're comfortable with it. If you're comfortable and you're doing the lifestyle and it's not hurting you per se in that moment, then maybe there isn't that wanting to put it behind.
it's also the fact that you got to realize too. I don't know if you've ever known anybody outside of myself or anything like that, you know, or have gone through this, you know. If you don't know what detox is and withdrawal is, and you know the last time you went, when I was at Union Gospel Mission in 20, let's see, I went to, and the reason I always talk about detox and the rehab is because usually you can't get to rehab until you've been medically detoxed and cleared to go. I checked in November of 2017. Cedar Nar, went for a 7 to 10 day stay, and then I went to Union Gospel Mission. And I'm not gonna. Uh, it was probably a month and a half to 2 months of hardcore withdrawal. That's heroin. Okay, now I don't know if the stuff was cut with fentanyl back then. I never tested my dope. I didn't care. The stronger, the better. You know, and I do. I don't know if I said this before, but any of our listeners, I want them to know that trigger warning, big time, because I'm gonna get real, but I'm not gonna lie about none of this stuff. I'm gonna be as open and transparent and deep, you know, with it. Not glorifying it, but I want people to understand how nasty this stuff is. Um, it was horrid, you know, and that's why when I relapsed after going for 8 months in UGM, um, I was using in the facility. You know, everybody went on this camping trip, and I hate to say it, but I relapsed inside the facility. I was pissed. I wasn't allowed to go. I messed up. Not their fault, totally my fault. I messed up, and I was told I couldn't go on a retreat, so I started relapsing in the facility. Got kicked out, and actually, I'm sorry, I did not get. I was correction, big time. they actually allowed me to stay, but I ended up leaving because of that withdrawal. Like I was saying, I didn't have any protection on that, and I knew it was going to come out soon because withdrawal symptoms do, you know. And I knew that my only, I don't want to say hope, but my only chance of being able to get through it was to go. And this sounds crazy, but I went back out, you know, and that's when I knew, when my doctor brought up the Suboxone, I'm like, you know what? I might have a chance with that stuff. It had never worked before 2018. I had never gotten substantial time, you know, and it was hard. I mean, I even went through pause, which is post-acute withdrawal symptoms syndrome. You can go through that. I've gone through it even on the medication. I mean, it's, you know, it's basically withdrawal symptoms, whether it's the cold, you know, chills, whatever, the, you know, any of those symptoms that you would know that somebody with an opiate addiction would go through. It's the flu-like symptoms that are 100 times more the flu. They're not 10 times. They're extremely crazy. It's insane. I didn't want to go through that again. I couldn't go through that again. I had never been able to get through that, you know, and I was done. At some point, it's not necessarily, like I said, like the question you asked a second ago was, when did I, you know, what would you be done trying to get clean? If you don't have something like a Suboxone, I've never tried methadone, I've never tried Vivitrol, I've never done any of that. Those medications are there for a reason. You know, that's why I jumped on, you know, buprenorphine. I wanted to stop relapsing. I didn't want to overdose anymore. You know, I was that's and I needed the most help that I can get. AA and NA wasn't helping me. You know, and I hate to say it, I'm not. They are great support systems, but they're not going to stop you from relapsing. And there's a funny uh, saying out there, relapse is a part of recovery, which is the absolute biggest amount of bullshit I've ever heard. Sobriety is a part of recovery. Okay. Relapse is a part of active addiction. That's what that is. So that to me is, I don't believe in it. I never have. Um, you can't have, it's, they contradict each other. So I just wanted, you know, I wanted to take that moment to put that in there as well, just because I think that's an important part, you know, when we're talking about, and I'm not saying the program of AA and NA don't work. They're great, you know, but I don't think they should judge people that take medications as well, you know, especially when you're talking about trying to live, especially with fentanyl out there. Fentanyl is killing people every day, every hour. You know, it needs to stop. That's, and I, you know, so I wanted to throw that one in there real quick.
Well, thank you
Why?
for sharing that perspective because there is a time and a place to have medications, prescriptions to help us to get through those times where other support systems or systems didn't work for us. It's like anything
Yeah.
else, you know, they're individual to the participant, and anytime the judgment comes in, whether it's judging using the help with prescriptions or judging somebody's ability or inability to not relapse,
Mm-hmm.
either way, the judgment, that's harsh. When you know you're being judged for
Yeah.
things, I mean that's a little trigger right there.
I was told to shut up at a meeting. I was told not to speak at a AA meeting. I mentioned Suboxone and how proud I was to get sober and to be on Suboxone. And the chairperson came up to me. This was in 2019, AA at the VA. And Madigan. I don't know what that lake, American Lake, maybe it's the one. It's by base. It's down south between where we are. You know,
Madigan?
yeah, yeah, it's somewhere out there.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I was told that, and I honestly don't remember if I ever went back to a meeting after that. In all honesty, I was just like, wow, it's gonna be like. I mean, I'm trying to save my life here. You know, I mean, and I'm not trying to say, like I said, sometimes AA and NA can work for some people, but I'm going to tell you this: it's not going to physically stop you from relapsing. I've watched so many people go through those programs, and you could still go out and do dope, but Suboxone ain't gonna. You can't when you're on it. I mean, it has Narcan in it. It has naltrexone in it. You cannot relapse on Suboxone. That nasal spray they give you is in the medication. Maybe I've never tried to. Maybe I got sober for a reason, so I've never tried, but I don't know why you would want to get on a medication just to um try your I just don't understand the whole concept of it. I would think that, I was trying to save my life.
Exactly, in the way that you knew how. And so when the
Yeah,
doctor gave
the
you
only
another
way.
option, you explored what could it help me more than the other things I've already tried before, and they didn't work.
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, I just want to make this the biggest point because I don't want people to think that AA and NA don't are not a good tool. I know there it is a vital tool out there. It is a great tool, but there are many other tools too. That's all I'm saying. I think that there is a whole, whether it's rehab, I think long-term rehab is another tool. I think short-term is bullshit. Like I was saying before, short-term rehab is for people that are trying to get out and go back to being parents again when they just have no business fucking doing that. I don't know if I allowed to cuss on here. I don't know if I'm, because I
I
might.
don't have any such rules. You express what you need to express, and that's the only
Okay.
rule that I
I'll,
have.
I'll, I'll be real. I'm not going to try to be nasty and vulgar, but I just, I, it's, yeah, there's just, I think long-term rehab, whether it's a year or two, um, that's something that people need to look at more so. I think detoxes need to be longer. I think they need to be up to a month. I don't think 10-day, a week long is that. I don't think that works anymore. I don't think it ever worked. It never worked for me. I was always sicker than a dog when I left after all the medications they tried to numb you out with. Um, and this is the other thing, outside of AA and NA, there's a program called Battlefield Addiction that I went through that was phenomenal, phenomenal. And it's a sober living. They used to run a rehab or I'm sorry, an outpatient program. I don't know if they still do, but what Art and Angie Dolan have done in the Pacific Northwest is phenomenal work. And if anybody ever needed to check them out, 100%. Battlefield Addiction is the spot that I was at for 4 months. Also relapsed. But I had the time of my life in that program, you know. And they'll always have a piece of my heart over there. They're amazing, they're dear to me. I can't support them enough.
What did they do that makes you feel this way that you can't say enough about them? What was different about what they offer?
They wrap their arm around you personally. They connect you back with the whole meaning of Battlefield, at least back when I was there, was connecting the family to the addict back to the community again. That way the person that actually has a support system, they're not alone. Not saying like I was talking about back in the day, getting the person back in with I don't know if they do this, if they back into fatherhood, parenting, and stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about at least the support system. That way, let's say you might not have, family or support outside. Let's say you're alone. You got them, and they're huge, and they have multiple families within their system. Um, and art teaches you the basics of life again, which is what you need. I mean, because you're relearning how to do everything again, and I mean everything, whether it's speaking, and I'm serious on this. It's crazy, respect, I mean, the funny thing is, every morning when I was at the big house, it was get up and make your bed. Start with that. Everyone talks about the job and everything else. It was funny, because but it was true, because you would see an addict get up and bed not made. The bed's not, the dishes aren't done. It's teaching them how to be human, how to be an adult. He would actually call his kids because we'd act like it because we didn't know how to act. We had been so numbed down for so long that's kind of Art's thing, is he would teach Art. I believe he's also licensed in chemical dependency. He's a recovering addict as well, so he knows exactly where we've all been. Him and I actually share the same treatment center. We both went to Pioneer Center North, which, by the way, shockingly has been destroyed. It is no longer, which is complete bullshit. Um, but he went back, I think in 2011 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on the date, So him and I would always talk about, rehab, our time in rehab and stuff like that. And anyways, they hold, I believe they have a Tuesday meeting where Art will talk about addiction and, mainly their mission is solution-based recovery. Okay, we're not talking about the problem, we're not talking about how sad we are. We are talking about how do we move forward. Okay, what are we doing to solve this stuff? How are we going to put an end to this, as he would call the fire hose of addiction, of this fentanyl and meth being sprayed upon our streets. And he says it in the best way, just like that. He's had politicians on his podcast. He runs a podcast too. I don't know if they call it Rebuild Recovery or if it's under Battlefield. It's actually on YouTube. I watch it all the time. And he runs a sober house, multiple, I believe. And it's just, it's been, gosh, just because of life. I haven't been there for about a year just because of all the stuff you mentioned, because of work and stuff. But I mean, I think they're still running the same program out in Kent, and I think it's absolutely one of the best programs, I would say, in the nation, by far. And I obviously can't speak outside of Washington State, but I haven't heard of anything that's good. And I have searched, I have looked around to see what other programs are doing, and whatever I could find, and just to see what's going on in the recovery side, of our society. It doesn't look good, but at least we have programs that are still surviving, but yeah, so that's the battlefield that I knew and know and love.
I'm really happy that you shared about this program that you went through and the fact that it's locally based because,
Yes.
you know, the homeless camps, the addictions for different drugs, it's rampant. It's still out there, and knowing
Yeah.
that there's a place that treats you as a human, and the
Yeah.
fact that they help support you in doing everyday tasks. When you can get up and make your bed, that's a win that you can do no matter what.
That's right.
You
That's
can't
right.
fail making your bed unless, other than choosing not to do it,
You
right?
can. Oh, you can. You can fail anything if you set your mind to it. We've watched it.
But it
But
is doable
yeah, that's
if chosen.
right.
And so having a quick win in the day, having the support of people that are going through the same things just as you, having the community support as well, because you said several times that you can't do this alone, that you need the supportive foundation, and not all supportive foundations are the same. So you have to find what's going to work for you. What are you going to be motivated by? Where do you feel, you know, a place comes in and can be supportive? Because, you talked about the things that weren't as supportive to you. You went to places
Mhm.
and spaces that they didn't allow you to express yourself and shut you down.
Yep.
And so that to me, even
still here.
It's censorship, right? Shutting people down is not how we help people to move forward, because the moment you feel like you're not seen, heard, or that what
Yeah,
you have to say is not important or not valid or wrong, well, are you gonna want to show up in a place like that? You're gonna say, forget this. I'm not even gonna try this anymore. And imagine other people that may have had that similar experience and they just kind of, left. They could have went right back into what they were doing,
that's
and
right.
so that's a disservice. I mean, not everyone's going
They
to
do
be
that.
strong and decide
You know?
that, this place wasn't working. I'll find a new one. When you're in that bottom point that you talked about being numbed out and whatnot, you're probably not thinking that, oh, well, this wasn't a good fit for me. I was not aligned with it. I'll go find another one. You may not even get there, and so it kind of got underneath my skin to have you say this, that you're at a meeting and they told you not to speak. It
Yeah,
just makes me
yeah.
livid.
After I did, they told me not to bring it up anymore, and just it was a complete shutdown, and it was shocking because I just, you might have a newcomer in there that you talk to, and you talk to like that, and that could be it. That could be the discussion they needed, the validation they needed right there to go back out and be done with it all. People really need to watch what they fucking say in those meetings, anywhere they are. They really need to watch it, because you have no idea what that person's going through. And the funny thing is, I'm still here after all that. I know it didn't take me out. I wasn't like, wow, I took me out of those meetings. I'm like, if this is how, and I'll be honest with you, it isn't the first time I heard about that in AA and NA. Okay. It isn't, there is a big judgment, because like I said, people think that you're basically doing the same thing with Suboxone. They think you're still doing heroin. That's the truth. That's what they think. They think you're still getting high, and I, it blows my mind. It, you know, I just wish people would study it a little bit more. I wish they would understand, how deadly fentanyl is. I don't want to go back to that shit ever again. I don't. I really don't. I I love where how far I've come from it. I've built, you know, I've had some good times, in the last 7+ years. What I've, built resume wise, I'm happy about. I mean, am I where I want to be? No, we're getting there, but at least I'm going there. At least I'm not like, oh, I'm 39 years old and here's that other part. I'm 39 years old. I'm not married. I have no kids. People would be freaking out right now. You know, I got to get married. I got to, I'm getting too old. Slow down. You know, I ain't tripping on that. I'm all good. It'll come if it does. And I don't need it. This is the other part about that. You know, I am so laser focused on um just life, on doing what I'm doing. That's it. There's nothing to complicate it with. When you try to complicate things, that's when things happen. you know so they say one day at a time, and that is true. I make goals, but be careful. I would also say, for people that are in recovery, be careful with expectations. That could lead to some really dark spots. I got the interview, I got the this, I got the that. Okay. I mean, don't think that. I mean, you might think that that's a good, that just be careful. I see it all the time online, everywhere. It's just there's so many expectations. They got to have validation. They got to have, I got 7 years clean. Give me the good for yous. No, dude. You should expect to have that. You should want to have that. That doesn't mean you got to have, all these people like and loving your shit. Just go out, do it without having all that. Real freedom is when you have nobody to impress. You don't need to impress the world, to dial the ego and the pride down a little bit, you know. Um, I don't know. I always say step aside and let the Lord lead.
You, Jerry, have just said so many amazing things that I didn't even have to ask you the question because you just took us right down the path. And because I wanted to speak to life after drug use.
Yeah,
And and I wanted to ask you more about really, you just painted the illustration. When you have an addiction and
yeah,
the addiction goes away, sometimes people tend to fill them with other addictions. And so
yes,
the one that you just spoke to was, hey, I'm clean and sober. Look at me, validate
yeah.
me that I cleaned up my life and everything's good and
They
great.
gotta get high.
Yes, so they get the dopamine hit from the
Yep,
very thing that they recovered from, when
yep,
really what you said is more powerful. I have goals. I have a timeline, but it's not so tightly wound that I have to do XYZ by a certain date, and that I'm just happy to be making goals and doing things and doing it in my own time, and then trusting in God to
yeah,
guide me through and to
yeah,
have that hope and that I guess prayer that everything's gonna be as it should be. And so
yeah,
you may not have chosen a life of addiction in that earlier part of your life as something that that you were going to do, because that's not how addiction works. It's something that creeps up on you. But what you did was larger, and the fact that you eventually came to this place where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
yeah.
I want to be clean. I want to have a life. I want to be able to
It
bring
might
my
come with
best and do things and enjoy life.
Yeah, it might come with that. I mean, you know, um, it took a little bit. It wasn't like when in July, July 3rd of 2018, I was gonna be in the venue, a security scene, sports and entertainment, the House of Representatives, the school district, this, that, the other. I mean, I've been told by exes before that they think I traded, drugs for work, that addiction, for money, and um, it, my oh God, what's the word? Um, my rebuttal to that would be, uh, what one would kill you? What was the unhealthy one? Is it okay to go to work? You don't want me to go to my generation, by the way, is hilarious. Okay. I'm a 1980s kid, all right. My generation and the generations to follow, hilarious when it comes to life choices, whether it's dating, marriage, work ethic, laziness, social media, addiction, all of it. It is so funny to watch my generation. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but to watch it from the outside, it is just like, what are we doing, you guys? What are we doing? You know, just, I mean, the fact that we don't adult that well is hilarious to me. We don't. We are a massive failure. Massive failure. And I'm not going to say, I guess I would say the 60s and 70s were weird. Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the, grunge era and that stuff came out, and you had people that were really, was that a good, the last good generation that I saw was the one that my adopted parents, my real parents, Roy and Debbie Mitchell, 1940s, 1950s, those folks were the blue collar, the really, I grew up in a household that both parents worked. You don't see that anymore. My mom was a registered nurse, for 40 plus years. My dad was a construction worker, carpenter. And they ran a foster care house for 40 plus years, taking in over 100 kids. I mean, and then my generation is the laziest generation I've ever seen in my life. You know, the amount of single parents out there is atrocious. This economy, I just don't understand why people think living like that is a way to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was curious, what do you think is the catalyst for that? for not being as
Irresponsibility.
adulting. What?
Irresponsibility.
So not taking responsibility for yourself and other
Yeah, no
people and doing.
integrity.
Mhm.
We don't have any integrity at all. You know, if you, I've seen this before. I've even dated it before where I'll watch somebody be like, they'll raise a child how they were raised instead of trying to do better for them. You bring a child in, it's not how you were raised, especially if you were raised in a crappy situation. Do better. That's it. Do better. And when it comes to dating, if you wanted me to hit on that one, I, what I've seen is it's not dating to marry. Not that I've seen. The past few uh, girls that the past few relationships I've had have both divorced twice. I haven't been married once. One of them was an engagement, yes. And then I realized I was making a very big mistake. And it's okay to say no, and it's okay to get out of that situation. And people are so afraid of being alone. That's a huge thing. My generation does not want to be alone. People in their 30s and 40s, even their 20s, why are they all getting married and having kids? It's projection. You have these things right here called a cell phone, and when you go on them, you're seeing everybody doing everything, and you don't know how it's actually going, and it doesn't matter what they're doing. Good for them if they got a successful thing going on. We got to dial back a little bit.
So what you're saying is we have too much access to information that's none of our business. It doesn't
Oh,
matter what your
access to
friend or
mental.
neighbor or online people are doing. It matters what you
Yeah,
are
yeah,
doing
yeah.
and what you want and trying to follow the uh, examples of these images, let's say on Instagram, of the perfect life, so your ideal
Yeah,
husband, ideal
yeah.
wife, the two kids in the house and the dog and and
It's
all of that. And really, are they really happy? Maybe they're just workaholics
And if they are, good for them. You
yeah.
don't, it's
So
you don't have
why would we want to have like other people's lives? We want to have the one that we are given. That's what should matter. And you're right, the loneliness epidemic is huge. I
yes,
see it all the time. And it's because people don't know how to
be
enjoy
alone.
solitude. They don't,
Yes,
they look at what everyone else has at a certain point in time, and they have no idea what the person's circumstances were to get there. And they all of a sudden go inward and say, well, I'm, 29, I should be married by now, and I should be in this career, and because all these other
yep,
people are. And I say hogwash because
yes, that's
because
right.
each person, you don't know what kind of background they're coming from. They might have everything handed to them, or maybe they have a really hard life where everything they have to work 10 times as hard. You just don't know about where people are. And when we do the comparison, we're cheating ourselves out of having a life that we love and care about when
And
we do
created,
that. Mm.
and the creation of it.
Well, yeah, that
Yours,
too.
your life is different from mine.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want yours. I support it. I love it. I love it for you. I love everything you and your family is doing, but I don't want I want to do, I'm going to create Jerry's.
Mhm.
I
As you
don't
should.
need yours or any of my coworkers or the neighbors. And maybe, and some people think, um I don't know. I shouldn't say what they think because I don't know what they think, but it's just you could see how, I got a few friends online that I actually, that I work with, um, that have, mentioned. I'm not gonna say names because I don't want to,
Yeah,
I don't
not
want to hurt.
necessary.
Yeah. Um, they have no idea how to be alone. They are really depressed and I mean depressed, you know. And I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I love being alone. I love it. I love not dating. I love being alone. I don't mind it at all. I I don't have a lot of time for a relationship, anyways, between everything I do. I mean, and I don't mind that. I don't know why. I'll be the George Clooney of the neighborhood, I guess. I'll be the 60-year-old bachelor, 70-year-old bachelor. And maybe when I'm good and ready. If it happens, I think when you least expect it, people walk into your life. I really do. And if they don't, they don't. you know um it doesn't have to be a my key thing is it doesn't have to be a rush. Be patient. Even if you're dating somebody and it's going well, that doesn't mean you marry them the next day. That doesn't mean you get pregnant the next day. Patience. Have some patience and have a little bit of dignity. You seeing people that sleeping around, it quit like just instantly. Well, I just don't get what happened. I don't. You wonder why foster care and adoption is so high right now. Single parent household is not where it's at. That's not giving the kid, the lifestyle you should be giving it when you can wait, have, um, a complete household, both parents, building something together, which is what you should be doing first. The couple should be building something together. This is how it actually should be going. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to be a know-it-all because I'm not married, no kids. But back in the day, so and so meets so and so. They start dating and getting along, and then one day maybe they get married. And by the way, before they get married, they both have jobs, careers, you know, um, and then they don't have this small rinky-dink apartment, right? They don't have the McDonald's or Walmart job. They might actually have a career that makes something, that pays something. Then they're able to get a house. Mind you, I haven't mentioned kids not once yet. All right. That comes later when you have the stability, the financial stability, the foundation, the home, not the apartment lease, the mortgage, the home to bring them into. And you've been dating and married to so and so for years. I mean, give it time. I don't get it. And
I
we
don't
don't
get
do
it either, Jerry, because what you just advocated for is taking the time to get to know who you are,
what?
feeling,
Whoa,
yeah, feeling secure in
get
yourself
out of
to just
here.
go be and worrying less about where you need to go. And when you do finally meet someone, when you said you're not looking, when you do finally meet someone, and if it doesn't
Yeah,
happen, okay, but if you do, then you're in that place where it's additive. It adds
yeah,
to your life. It's not something like you come half to meet your other half to become a whole. Your whole going into it. You slow it
100%.
down to take the time to do it right, which is to get to really know the person and spend that time, quality time before you have the kids if you choose
Build.
to have them.
That's it. It's actually common sense and it's not hard. It's building something and it's not, you see red flags, you bounce. You're not like, oh, let me see if he changes because I don't want to be single. No, have some confidence. Okay. No one has that anymore either. Have a little bit of confidence, and have a standard. Aim a little higher than the gutter, you know. I don't it's crazy to me. I see people settling on red flags way too often because they don't want to be single. You know, I just don't know what happened to building something together. How cool is that? That's actually a cool thing to do. Building something together, a life together. But after you've dated, you don't have to date and have a kid with every person you meet, which is the problem nowadays. Online dating is crazy. It
I'm
is.
glad I don't
You
have to do it, actually, because
what's
I
that?
hear how crazy it is.
What happened?
Oh, so I said I was glad I don't have to do it because I've heard how
Yeah.
crazy it is, and
Oh,
so
it's
I don't
just
even have to bother with it. But
No, and I get why people, I understand because people want to see what other options are out there, but it's actually it's laughable.
it
I've done
is.
it. I will say that I have done it. I have.
Yeah.
And I probably am right. I probably have things out there that I don't even know I have out there that I don't even look, profile. And it's just, for people that are like, oh, I work so much. Maybe, if you work so much, you have kids. My whole thing too, this is another thing I want to throw out there. If you're a single mom, dating isn't really a flex. Be a mom. Stop bringing randos around. And the dads too. It goes both ways. Enough. Stop it. Aim. Do better. It's you already, obviously you already failed before, you and the other person. Stop doing the same thing over and over and over again. That is 95, I would at least say 90% of the people that I've seen out there that are online that do that kind of crap. They're single parents, and it's kind of sad to see. I it's embarrassing. I don't know.
It, well, it is sad to see poor habits being repeated over and over again when you could take the time to really, like you said, set the bar higher, have some standards for yourself, take the
Yes.
time to build to make it right. I think that the messaging that we started with, about addiction and what happens, when you choose to grow in yourself, then there's so
Yes.
much more that life has to offer you. And so, really, whether it's, the addiction that we talked about, or whether it's cell phone, or maybe it's serial
Yeah.
dating, or whatever it is, we all
Yes.
have things to work on and we all can do better. And really, what the two of us are both saying here is that when you know better, you're going to do better.
Yeah.
And the only person at the end of the day that, that you've got to like be validated by is yourself. And when you are happy and secure and know what you value in yourself, then these number of addictions that we might have are going to be a lot less.
You just said something, Linda, that I've forgot to mention that is perfect. Happy doesn't come from outside. It's a choice. It comes from internal.
It
And
does.
if you're not happy, a lot of people, that's actually a huge reason why, people try to date, marry, and all that. They want to be happy. He makes me happy, she makes me happy. Well, were you happy before you jumped into that relationship, or are you looking for that? Your marriage, your relationship will never work if you don't know what internal happiness is. If you don't choose to wake up that day and be happy, I just can't. And I've seen so many marriages, so many relationships, fail because, oh, he's not making me happy anymore, or it's some external thing. It's so secular when it comes to relationships. That's why they don't work. Okay, if you bring a little bit of spirituality in there, there's a hint, and let that drive the relationship. um and this is the other thing. Have fun. Dating's supposed to actually be fun, and I'm not talking about um in an inappropriate intimate manner, in a bedroom manner. I'm talking about, it's supposed to actually be fun. You're supposed to enjoy the person. It's not supposed to be, the getting laid part, which is exactly what's going on out there. It's supposed to be two people find attraction in each other, whether that's personal. It should be a personality, man, that person's got a great attitude, you know and I find him kind of cute, let's go out, and see, play, go on a date and see how we are, outside of whatever we met, and see how it goes, and that keeps on continuing, and have fun doing things together. And for a while, like I was saying before, it doesn't have to be a, 2-3 month date and we're engaged or we're popping out a kid. We can slow down, enjoy each other, build something, and see where that goes. And guess what? If you realize that it doesn't work, that you're better off being friends, that's all right too. Or you're better off not being in each other's life, that's okay too. It's okay to say no. It's okay to move on.
Best messaging of the week, Jerry. You, you said a lot of things in the hour that we've been together, speaking to addiction, relationships,
I don't know how I
family
jumped.
units.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there's no sorry at all. I'm actually quite pleased. Uh,
Awesome.
yes, no, I'm glad that we started this conversation where we did today and where we're
Yeah,
ending up here at the end of the hour because, I see, part two to this because
I'd love to. I would love
we
to.
talked
I'd love.
about doing another feature, and
Yeah,
speaking to relationships was the next one that we were going to do. And
that's
so,
funny.
what a wonderful way to ring in the new year
That's
to talk
right.
about
Yes.
relationships. Because I would say there's a lot of gentlemen out there, women included, that they don't really know how to navigate relationships in a healthy way. And they're not so good necessarily at forming boundaries, saying no, which is one of the things that you had said, being alone and giving yourself time to
Yeah,
get to know yourself. I mean, the list of things that happen in relationships when it starts at the
yeah,
foundational building and then it moves through using communication to strengthen and improve the
I,
relationships. So we could
yeah,
have a whole year just talking nothing about the dynamics of relationships.
that's right. And you said communication. Um, there's a generation that was really thrown into the social media thing that doesn't have any idea how to communicate. Communication is not about texting or phone calling. Yes, you can use that as a tool, but if you're not going to actually, you know, and I guess, I'm talking about more keyboard warriors, I guess. I guess phone calling is a vocal part. I'm very old school with my ways of communication. I'd rather be able to speak to you in person and go from there. If you don't know how to, if you struggle with communication and you're out there doing all, why? I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. Um, and relationships aren't that difficult, especially when you're dating. It's common sense. Either you get along or you don't. Either you want to be, with that person or you don't. But that doesn't mean you got to rush it. All I was, the biggest thing is, like you said before, take time.
Mhm.
Enjoy the person. Enjoy the time. Just put the cell phone away. Be present with the person. That's it. Enjoy the memories you're making. That's all it is. It's not hard to do it. And it's okay, like I said, if it doesn't work. I've been through multiple relationships where they didn't work, multiple that I thought were going to work. A couple I thought were really, I thought the key relationships, but it's okay. Accepting the fact that it's okay. And it's also okay to be sad and to, going through, I don't, depression sucks if you're going to, if you're going through, but that's okay too. Those anxieties, those depressions, the sadness, the grief, the loss, all that. It's okay to feel, embrace that, instead of running from those feelings. That way, that hey, that's what I'm feeling. The Art from Battlefield, Art Dolan there from Battlefield always taught us, embrace those feelings, know what those feelings feel like, point them out and sit with them. It's okay. And if you got to call a friend and stuff like that, do it. You know, it's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to be human. You know, and I, I don't, I would say this. I don't think it's okay. I mean, if you want to be alone, that's all right too. But it's all, it's but it's okay to ask for help too. And I think that's the biggest thing, whether it's relationship addiction, you know, any of this stuff, it is 100%, um, I've had to, you know, even going through, even being sober doesn't mean you're cured. You might still need help. You will need help. We all do. So that I just we need each other. So yeah, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you very much, Jerry, for leaving us on that note that we can ask for help, that we need each other. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I like I just was mentioning that there's going to be more of us in coming on the men's room show in the new year, and
Please.
we'll be keeping the conversation going. So Jerry,
Love.
thank you so much for showing up today with vulnerability and care, and then the genuine desire to keep the conversation going, because it's men like you that help it to be seen that if you go through something hard as addiction or yeah, loss of a relationship, you're
Yeah,
still here. You can still keep
that's right.
going. And so for
Totally.
that, I
It's light.
appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Linda. I cannot wait for our next episode. It's going to be a blast. And you are an awesome host. You rock. Thank
Thank
you.
you.